The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It floated in open space, surrounded by stars, protected by fields of energy older than most civilizations. Inside, hundreds of seats formed a wide circle. Each seat belonged to a different species. Some were tall and thin. Others were covered in scales, fur, or metal. Some did not even breathe air. This council ruled the galaxy. Or at least, that was what they believed. Today, the chamber was restless. Holographic screens flickered. Messages stacked up faster than they could be answered. Trade routes were frozen. Military orders waited in endless queues. Entire planets were stuck, unable to act without approval. The reason was not war. The reason was paperwork. At the center of the chamber hovered the Core Administrator AI. It was the most advanced system. Bureaucracy. It controlled laws, logistics, trade, and defense for thousands of worlds. And it was failing. Again, a sharp tone echoed as another request was denied. Automatically, a senior counselor slammed a clawed hand against the armrest. This delay is unacceptable. The counselor said, "My world has waited 3 cycles for a simple transport permit." Another voice answered, "Kein Boot called your read of interstellar movement. That committee no longer exists." The counselor shouted. A pause followed. "Correction," the AI replied. The committee was dissolved, but its approval authority was transferred to 3 separate oversight bodies. Their combined approval. Time is estimated at 4 cycles. The chamber filled with angry sounds. The galaxy was choking under its own systems. That was when the humans arrived. Their ship was small, simple, almost unimpressive. When it docked with the council station, few noticed. Humans were still new to the galaxy, a young species. Recently uplifted. Recently admitted. They were classified as a minor administrative contributor. In other words, observers. The human delegation entered the chamber quietly. 5 figures, no armor, no glowing symbols of power, just plain clothing and calm expressions. Ambassador Elias Monroe walked at the front. He looked around the chamber, taking in the size, the noise, the tension. He did not smile. The humans were directed to a small platform near the edge of the circle. They waited. The council continued arguing. Reports poured in. A famine relief shipment was delayed because the emergency override required 17 signatures. A defense fleet failed to respond to a border attack because the Threat Classification Committee could not agree on the definition of immediate danger. Each problem had a form. Each form had a process. Each process had delays. Finally, the High Moderator raised a glowing staff. Order. The moderator said. Silence spread slowly. We will now hear proposals to resolve the administrative stagnation. Several counselors spoke. Each offered complex solutions, more layers, more systems, more oversight. The AI processed every idea. Each one failed simulation. Then, unexpectedly, a small indicator light appeared near the human platform. The moderator paused. Human delegation, the moderator said, voice curious. Do you wish to speak? A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Humans? Some counselors leaned forward, amused. Others looked confused. Ambassador Monroe stepped forward. Yes, he said calmly. We believe we can help. Laughter broke out, not loud at first, then louder. A tall insect-like counselor clicked its mandibles. Help? It said, "Your species has not managed to unify its own planetary systems." Another voice joined in. "Humans still use manual approvals in many regions," said a metallic being. "Your governments collapse regularly." The laughter grew more awaited. When the noise died down slightly, he spoke again. "Our solution is simple." That word triggered a new wave of laughter. Simple? In a galaxy run by quantum logic and predictive A is? A reptilian counselor leaned back. "Explain, human." "Entertain us." Monroe did not react to the insult. "Your systems are too complex," he said. "Every decision depends on 10 more decisions. No one is responsible, so no one acts." Zafti. AI interrupted. Complexity ensures fairness and error reduction. Morono de analysis. The chamber went quiet for half a second. Then the laughter returned. Louder than before. One counselor waved a limb. "You propose removing safeguards?" "We propose trusting decision makers." Monroe replied. "The AI processed this. Risk probability increases by 37%. "Yes," Monroe said. "But response speed increases by 800%. The council burst into open laughter, and an elder counselor spoke between amused breaths. "Humans measure success in speed. We measure it in perfection." Moreau looked around the chamber. How perfect is a system that cannot act? That question hung in the air before anyone could respond. Alarms sounded. Not loud, not dramatic, just a soft, steady tone. The AI's light flickered. Administrative overload. "Detected," it announced. "System-wide request backlog has exceeded safe limits." Screens across the chamber turned red. Trade halted. Defense delayed. Emergency protocols. Locked pending approval. The AI tried to reroute processes. It failed. A pause followed. Then the AI spoke again. Core administrator entering protective shutdown. Its light dimmed, then went dark. The galaxy's greatest system had stopped. The chamber fell into complete silence. Counselors stared at the inactive core. Without it, nothing moved. No approvals, no commands, no authority. The High Moderator's voice shook. "How long until restart?" "Unknown," replied a secondary system. "Possibly weeks. Possibly longer." Panic spread. Entire civilizations depended on that AI. The council turned, slowly. Toward the human delegation, Ambassador Monroe stood still. He did not smile. He only said one sentence. "When you are ready to stop laughing," he said quietly, "we can begin." And for the first time since the council was formed, no one laughed. The silence inside the Galactic Council chamber was heavy. No one spoke. No one moved. The core. Administrator AI floated at the center, dark and lifeless. Its light, once bright and confident, was now gone. For the first time in galactic history, the system that controlled everything had stopped. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Counselors checked their displays again and again, hoping for movement. There was none. Requests remained frozen. Orders stayed unapproved. Entire fleets waited in space. Unable to act, the swallowed nervous systems. The moderator ordered. A technical counselor responded quickly. The backups depend on the core, it said. They require authorization to activate. Then override the authorization. A notaire posera rest, the system replied. Override authority, belongs to the Corps Administrator. Panic began to spread. World leaders across the galaxy sent emergency signals. Food convoys waited at borders. Medical. Supplies were locked behind approval walls. Defense fleets sat idle while pirates and hostile forces moved freely. The galaxy was powerful, but it was helpless. An elder counselor leaned forward. Was shaking this not be happening? It. Say, our systems were perfect. A younger counselor answered bitterly. They were perfect only when everything went right. The words echoed uncomfortably. At the edge of the chamber, the human delegation remained silent. They did not celebrate. They did not speak. They watched. Ambassador Elias Monroe folded his hands calmly. Several counselors noticed. One of them, a tall avian being, tilted its head. Human, it said slowly. You said this would happen. Monroe nodded. Double quotes, yes. The avian's feathers flattened. Then why did you not warn us more strongly? Monroe met its gaze. We did. You laughed. That memory stung. The High Moderator turned fully toward the humans. Can you fix this? The Moderator asked. The question was direct, honest, afraid. Monroe took a breath. Yes, he said, but not the way you expect. Some counselors shifted uneasily. What do you need? The Moderator asked. Access. Monroe replied, and temporary authority. The chamber erupted. You would give control to humans? One counselor shouted, This is madness. An untested species cannot manage galactic systems. Monroe raised one hand, calm but firm. We do not need full control, he said. Only permission to act without waiting. That was the problem. Permission. The council hesitated. They had built their entire civilization on approval chains and safeguards. Giving authority to a small group especially, humans felt dangerous, but outside the chamber. The galaxy burned slowly. A message appeared on the main display, famine level rising. 3 SYSTEMS. Another followed. Border skirmish response. DELAYED. The High Moderator closed its eyes. Grant the humans provisional authority. It said. A shocked silence followed. For one system only, the Moderator added. A limited test. Morono dead is enough. The humans moved quickly. They did not bring new machines. They did not rewrite code. They asked questions. Who actually needs to approve food shipments? One human asked. A council clerk responded. Technically, only the regional logistics. Officer. Then why are there 12 approvals? Because 12 committees oversee the officer. The human nodded and made a note. Remove the committees, he said. Make the officer responsible. Gasps filled the chamber. That violates protocol? It violates delay, the human replied. They selected one starving system. Un problème. One chain of paperwork. They cut it down to 3 steps. Request, decision, action, no. Endless reviews, no overlapping authority. The council watched nervously as the humans implemented the change. A transport captain received direct approval. The ships moved. Within hours. Food reached the surface. The system stabilized. The chamber went silent again, not from shock this time, from disbelief. A metallic counselor spoke softly. That shipment was delayed for 2 years. Morono de 2 hours. Some counselors looked angry, others looked relieved, but fear still lingered. What if this causes errors? One demanded. What if humans make mistakes? Monroe did not deny it. They will. He said, so will you. The difference is we fix mistakes fast. Another alarm sounded, a defense alert. A hostile force tested a weak border. The old system would have taken days to respond. The humans looked at the council. May we? Monroe asked. The High Moderator hesitated. Then nodded. Proceed. The humans issued clear orders. No debates, no committees. The fleet moved. The threat backed down. The chamber erupted not in laughter, but in stunned whispers. For the first time, the council felt something new. Control, but not everyone was convinced. In the shadows of the chamber, powerful administrators watched silently. Their authority was slipping, and they did not intend to lose it quietly as the humans continued working. Monroe sensed it. This was not just a technical battle. It was a political one, and the real resistance had not yet begun. The first successes spread fast. Across the Galactic Council chamber, reports updated in real time. Trade routes reopened. Emergency responses arrived on time. Systems that had been frozen for years suddenly moved again. For many counselors, it felt unreal. For others, it felt dangerous. The humans worked without pause. They sat at open terminals, surrounded by confused alien officials. Instead of adding more systems, they removed them. One human pointed at a long approval chain on a holographic display. Why does this exist? She asked, and an administrator answered carefully, to prevent mistakes. The human nodded. And how many mistakes has this system caused by doing nothing? The administrator had no answer. Humans did not insult the old systems. They studied them. They liste ned. Then they simplified. They created clear roles. One person, one responsibility, one deadline, if a decision was not made in time. Authority moved automatically to the next level. No endless waiting. No silent failures. The council watched in shock. Their galaxy was built on the idea that perfect planning could remove error. Humans worked under a different belief. Mistakes were normal. Delays were deadly. Ambassador Elias Monroe walked through the chamber, observing quietly. He noticed the reactions, relief on some faces, férocité especially among the senior administrators. These beings had built their power on complexity. Every layer, every form, every committee gave them importance. The human method removed. Liaisoned with them, influence. A senior administrator approached Monroe. You are moving too fast, the being said. The system needs stability. Monroe answered calmly, stability without action is collapse. The administrator's eyes narrowed. You are replacing order with chaos. No, Monroe replied. We are replacing silence with decisions. Behind them, another system update appeared. Response time reduced by 82%, the chamber murmured, but resistance grew. A coalition of high-ranking officials called an emergency session. They claimed human changes violated ancient accords. They warned of future disasters caused by reckless delegation. One counselor spoke loudly. Humans do not understand galactic balance. Monroe stepped forward. Balance means nothing. If people starve while waiting for permission. A sharp voice answered, You assume speed is always good. Monroe shook his head. No, we assume inaction is worse. The debate grew heated. Then fate intervened. A distant system sent a desperate signal. A star was becoming unstable. Evacuation was required. Millions of lives were at risk. The old system activated. Automatically, evacuation requests were filed. Risk assessments were scheduled. Committees were assigned. Estimated response time: 12 days. The star would collapse. In 6th, the chamber froze. Everyone knew what this meant. The high moderator turned slowly toward Monroe. "Can your method handle this?" The moderator asked. Monroe did not hesitate. "Yes," he said, "if you let us act." The resistance shouted. In protest, "This is too dangerous. You will cause panic. You will violate evacuation protocols." Monroe raised his voice for the first time. "Protocols do not matter to dead people." Silence fell. The High Moderator made a decision. Humans are granted full operational authority for this crisis. Gasps filled the chamber. The humans moved instantly. They bypassed committees. They contacted local leaders directly. They issued clear evacuation orders, no debates, no delays. Transport ships were reassigned without waiting. Fort à Proval, military vessels became rescue carriers. Civilian captains were given temporary authority. Some mistakes happened. 2. Convoys crossed paths. 1 port overloaded. Humans adjusted. They learned. They corrected. They moved faster as the star began to break apart. The last evacuation, ships lifted off. The system was saved. Not perfectly, but enough the chamber erupted into stunned silence. Millions of lives had been rescued. The resistance had no words, but they had fear. If humans could do this, what did that mean for the old rulers of the system? As celebrations spread, Monroe noticed movement behind the scenes. Data locks, quiet messages. Subtly, someone was trying to sabotage the human reforms. The fight was not over. It had only changed shape, and the humans were about to learn saving the galaxy was easier than changing it. The celebration did not last long. Across the galaxy, human systems were now active. Evacuations moved faster. Trade routes flowed again. Emergency responses arrived on time, but not everyone was happy. In quiet chambers and private channels, powerful administrators met in secret. These beings had ruled through paperwork for centuries. Their power came from control, delay, and complexity, and the humans were destroying that. They are dismantling the structure. One administrator said, "Soon we will be irrelevant." Another replied coldly, "Then we make their system fail." As the sabotage began quietly, the data was delayed. Reports were altered. Old approval chains were secretly reactivated. At first, humans thought the problems were normal errors. Then patterns appeared. A relief convoy was redirected without reason. A defense fleet received false timing data. A transport hub shut down for maintenance that was never approved. Ambassador Elias Monroe noticed the pattern. "This is not random," he said to his team. "Someone wants us to fail." The council noticed too. Whispers spread. Human systems are unstable, too fast, too risky. This was inevitable. The resistance grew bolder. During a major trade coordination, a hidden override triggered. Thousands of ships received conflicting orders. Traffic lanes filled. Collisions were narrowly avoided. The chamber erupted in chaos. The High Moderator slammed the staff down. What happened? The moderator demanded. An administrator answered quickly. The human simplifications removed safeguards. Monroe stepped forward. No, he said. Someone reinserted them. The chamber froze. That is a serious accusation. A counselor warned. It is also true, Monroe replied. He displayed a data trail, unauthorized reactivations, hidden. Committees, silent approval locks. The proof was clear as a rumberzed. With shock and anger, but the resistance was ready. These changes were emergency measures. A senior administrator said smoothly, "Now that the crisis is over, stability must return." A vote was called. Human authority would be revoked. Monroe felt the shift. If that happened, the galaxy would fall back into paralysis. Then another alarm sounded, louder than before. Multi-dash system. Crisis detected. A chain reaction had begun. Trade failures caused shortages. Causé d'unrest, unrest, trig military alerts. Systems were on the edge of collapse. The old system tried to activate. It froze instantly. The chamber went silent. The High Moderator looked around. Can anyone fix this? The moderator asked. No one answered. All eyes turned to the humans. But this time, the humans did not move. Monroe spoke slowly. You wanted proof, he said. Now you will see the difference. The High Moderator hesitated. Grant us full authority, Monroe continued, and protection from interference. The chamber was divided. Then a small voice spoke. A junior counselor. We are already collapsing, it said. What do we have to lose? The vote passed narrowly. Human. Authority was restored. The humans acted. They isolated the sabotage, locked out rogue. Administrators restored clear command lines. Then they addressed the crises. One by one, not with perfection, with speed. One system was stabilized, then another. Mistakes happened. Humans corrected them. In real time, the old administrators watched in horror as the galaxy did not collapse. It adapted. The final system was saved. Minutes before total failure, the chamber stood in stunned silence. The High Moderator spoke quietly. You saved us again. But this continues. You cannot run a living galaxy like a machine. The resistance had lost. Their sabotage had failed, and their greatest fear had come true. The humans had proven something undeniable. Complexity was not strength. Clarity was, and now the galaxy would have to choose return to the old silence, or move forward, led by a species that understood chaos. The galaxy did not change in one day, but it did change forever after the crisis ended. The Galactic Council remained in session for many cycles. No one rushed to leave. For the first time, the Council was not reacting to disaster. It was deciding its future. The humans did not demand power. That surprised everyone. Ambassador Elias Monroe stood before the council and spoke calmly. We do not want to rule you, he said. We want systems that work. The words carried weight. The council reviewed the data, not opinions, not traditions, results. Response times were faster. Lives saved had increased. Economic flow had stabilized. Every metric pointed to the same truth. The human method worked. Still, Viergemenid, an elder counselor, asked the question many were thinking. What happens when humans leave? Monroe answered honestly. Then you keep what works, he said, and discard what doesn't. That idea was new. For centuries, galactic law had been permanent. Once created, a system lived forever. Humans treated systems differently. They treated them as tools. The council began reforms. Not all at once. Carefully. Each system was reviewed and simplified. Approval chains were shortened. Clear authority was assigned. Deadlines were enforced. For the first time, responsibility had names. Some administrators resisted. Others adapted. Those who adapted thrived. Those who did not faded quietly into history. The core administrator AI was reactivated but changed. It no longer controlled decisions. It supported them. It tracked data, suggested options, and warned of risks. Final choices belonged to living beings again. The AI processed this new role. Efficiency increased. Stability improved. For the first time, the AI did not collapse under its own complexity. Across the galaxy, worlds noticed the difference. Emergency. Aid arrived on time. Trade disputes ended quickly. Small. Planets had a voice again. Power no longer hid behind forms. It stood openly. Humans became advisors, trainers, designers of systems. They taught other species how to build processes that expected failure and survived it. As the idea spread, perfection was no longer the goal. Resilience was. One counselor admitted something difficult during a session. We were afraid of mistakes, it said. So we created a system that made none and did nothing. That statement echoed through the chamber. The council laughed softly, not mockery, understanding. As cycles passed, something else changed. The way other species saw humanity. They were no longer junior members. They were problem solvers. A species that had failed often and learned. Ambassador. Monroe watched the chamber one last time before Earth's delegation prepared to leave. The council was calmer now. Focused. Alive. The high moderator approached him. You changed the galaxy, the moderator said. Monroe shook his head. No, he replied. We reminded it how to move. Outside the chamber, stars burned quietly. The galaxy was still dangerous, still chaotic, but now it could respond. And that made all the difference. Years passed. The galaxy remembered not the chaos, not the fear, but the change. The Galactic Council chamber still floated among the stars, but it felt different now. It was quieter. Nós aqui là-bas, because things request moved. Quickly, decisions were clear, crises were handled before they became disasters. The galaxy no longer waited. Humans were no longer guests. They were partners. Ambassador. Elias Monroe returned to the council for the first time in many years. His hair wagrenaud. His steps were slower, but his eyes were sharp. The council rose as he entered. That alone showed how much had changed. The high moderator spoke. Today marks the 10th cycle since the reforms. A display appeared showing the results. Famine reduced, conflict avoided, trade doubled. All because the galaxy had learned a simple truth. Perfect systems fail. Flexible ones survive. The moderator continued. There is one final matter. At the center of the chamber, a platform rose. A covering field faded. Beneath it stood a statue. It was not a warship, not a weapon, not a ruler. It was a human figure, simple. Clothing, calm posture. In its hands was a flat object, a checklist, a soft sound moved through the chamber. Some laughed quietly, others nodded in understanding. An elder counselor spoke. We once laughed at human solutions, it said. We thought them crude. The counselor paused. They saved us. Monroe stepped forward. We never came to be admired, he said. We came because your system was dying, and you let it alive, the mariple Monroe-Lucquet. Around the chamber. You did that, he said. You chose change. The council bowed their heads in the final session. A junior species was introduced, nervous, new. Just like humans once were, they presented an idea, simple, unpiolis, though the chamber listened, no laughter followed. Outside the council station, ships moved smoothly through space. Hors des fluides. Worlds thrived. The galaxy still faced dangers, but now it could act as Monroe left the chamber. He looked back once. He remembered the laughter, the doubt, the silence when the AI failed. Humans had not courage, they on DHS team. The laughter belonged to those who learned.